Hello and welcome to my latest podcast. I've got no idea what number we're up to. I probably should have done some research into my own work, but this is kind of a spur of the moment thing that I just thought I would throw together. Just to get some thoughts out of me noggin, and also just to try a few different ways of doing these. So I think one of the things that puts me off almost doing anything is sometimes once you've done a few things like these, like video editing and audio editing, you do start realizing how much work is involved in the whole process. So sometimes I kind of like talk myself out of it because I'm like, oh God, I'm gonna have to set up those microphones. I'm gonna have to edit this. I'm gonna have to sync it all up together again afterwards, blah, blah, blah. If you've done any of that, you'll relate. And if you haven't, have a go. It's fun. I'm sure I've sold it. So what I'm doing today is I'm just using the audio from the camera. I do have what's called a Rode Video Mic Pro. It's the Lumix Panasonic FC2000, and I'm using my Zoom H4n with a Rode lavalier mic, which is just like a lapel mic that I've clipped here, rather than setting up Logic, having to worry about doing all that with a computer. And hopefully this is also like a portable thing, so I could essentially do these anywhere. You actually join me now in our lovely green retreat, which we had built in the garden. I feel really fortunate to have this space, and hopefully I'm going to be doing some more podcasts from here. I've noticed there's like a weird lilt to every sentence. I'm going up and I'm coming down. Tension, resolution. Okay, so what I'd like to talk about, and actually I've made some notes. I mean, so it's kind of a bit of a stream of consciousness, but it's a stream of consciousness maybe I had earlier on, and now I'm going to relay it to you with a further stream of consciousness, but with some pointers. So I just thought I would just talk about something that I see all the time on my Facebook feed, and you may see on yours, and I think we're starting to see it more and more in real life. Maybe we always have done. And I just want to talk a bit about people's opinions, different sides they're on, like right, left, all of that stuff, red, blue, and also contradictions. So I'm going to call this, I've written it down, so I wasn't going to call it this, but that's just what it starts with at the top. So it's going to be called opinions, sides, contradictions. So I mean, I've been kind of like thinking about this stuff for years really, but what has really brought it to my attention was last night. I watched loads of YouTube videos, and they were set in Berklee, on the uni campuses there, and also in Portland, Oregon. Many of these videos, you can just kind of search on YouTube, just type in Berklee campus problems probably, or Antifa and Berklee. Portland, Oregon, there's loads, but obviously I don't have unlimited time, so I only watched a few of them, and they're quite disturbing actually. So they start in about 2017, the ones I watched, so I think they were like the end of 2017. Those were the Berklee ones, and then there was one at the start of 2018, and they go all the way up to the end of 2018. And the first thing that I noticed was it's really mental out in the States at the minute in certain parts, like particularly Portland, Oregon and Berklee. I don't know if that's indicative of other parts of America, but it's to a degree that we don't have in this country, I don't think. We have problems, and we have loads of protests and kind of counter protests, and there are some problems, but I just don't think to the same degree that they are certainly in Portland. I mean, it was almost a bit like civil war, it seemed to me, and the police, they don't know what to do, I don't think, because you have civilians that have riot shields, and they have pepper spray. So I suppose from the police's point of view, it's like, do they go in and have like a full-on riot, or do they just let people like go at it? And it seems they opt for the latter, although maybe they probably should help a bit more, but I mean, they're probably understaffed, aren't they? So kind of what I wanted to talk about really was just the extremes on both sides. I'm just checking my hands are in shot there. Yeah, so the extremes of both sides seem to me that they're almost exactly the same, just two sides of the same coin. Both saying really, really different things, but doing it all in the same way and using the same methods. And often things that or opinions or behaviours that they would consider anathema in the other side, in their enemy, like if they do it, it's okay. And that seems like crazy to me, and I will come on to that, and that's where the contradiction side comes into it. But yeah, it's like they'll off, so even like the basic thing of being anti-hate and anti-violence, and then using violence to stop that, it just seems like crazy to me. And it's almost like we pile on more hate rather than trying something else. I'm not saying that I have the answers, but it seems weird to me that the answer to hate is more hate, or the answer to violence is more violence. I mean, sometimes that's true, like in a war, or I don't know, like if someone's attacking you or your family. And I will come on to that again, yeah, because there's loads of contradictions. Like if somebody attacks you, are you entitled to defend yourself? So yeah, I'm just gonna check my notes and just see where I'm going, because I've kind of, like I've already gone off piste. I might have to edit this bit out. So yeah, like you might see like an edit here. So we're back from my brain meandering. So yeah, anyway, long story short, what I find weird is one side will see opinions or behaviours in the other that they consider anathema, but then if they do them, it's okay. And the thing that I sometimes can't wrap my head around is how people don't see that, how they don't see the contradiction and they don't see the cognitive dissonance. And when you watch these videos, like, you see so much stuff. So for instance, one of the things I saw is there's an Antifa group, and they pepper spray this guy. So then this guy kind of punches them, and I think he's a stronger guy, and yet he ends up kind of like beating off, he ends up fending off a few of the people that are trying to attack him, and then they sort of turn on him and say that he's really violent and he's really angry. And I think one of the people that was pepper spraying him turns out to be a woman, and they sort of say that he's a woman beater and stuff. And I was just thinking to myself, well, if somebody pepper sprays you, are you allowed to hit them back? And if you do, does that mean you're violent? If one of those people happens to be a woman, does that mean that you're like a woman-hating misogynist? Certainly if they have a mask on, like, and you don't know. Now, I'm aware that probably looks like I'm sort of taking the side of the people that would be on the right, and I'm not at all, because you see stuff, from the other side, where you see, people, sort of facing up against the Antifa and almost looking for a fight. And I think that's my biggest problem with it, is it seems like a bunch of people who are angry just looking to fight somebody else. It almost seems like the opinion is irrelevant. Now, I'm aware that this is going to sound like the Trump thing, where he said, yeah, there's kind of good and bad on both sides. And whilst I didn't ever think that I would be quoting him, I think there is some truth in that. That there are people who you would consider being on the right, or the conservative in this country, or Republican in America, that are really, really good people that are probably just trying to be, I don't know, proud Americans, proud of their economy, all of those kind of things. And they're probably just interested, in kind of making sure their families are well fed. I mean, if you don't think that people like that exist, and you don't think that people vote conservative or vote Republican enough for decent reasons, then I think maybe there's a problem. in the way that you process things, because there are some people who just happen to lean that way politically, but you could probably sit down with them and they would be really, really lovely people. The same as in the UK with Brexit. Like if you think that you can justifiably hate anybody that voted leave, and they're all just kind of, they're all just Nazis or they hate immigrants. In my opinion, it's a ludicrous thing to have, because there were people who undoubtedly voted for those reasons. But to claim it's the majority, considering there are many people that I know, and perhaps many people that you know, that vote these ways, are we saying that we just hate them and they're all just idiots? And if it is the case, what do we do about that? You can't have some kind of civil war, which seems to be what's starting to happen. You're having increasing issues with this kind of right, left, leave, remain. These two diametrically opposed things that don't realise the similarities, and also don't realise the fact that we're all connected, and we're all human beings, and what runs through us is the same. Sorry, I'm gonna edit out this bit again. I was kind of going off on a brief sojourn into somewhere else that I wasn't intending to. But the basic point that I'm making is that we have these two sides that seem to have completely different opinions on things, but use exactly the same ways of expressing them. And when you watch these videos and you have these fights, it's almost like people going, opinion, my opinion, your opinion, my opinion. What? I've got free speech, but I can't listen to your opinion. Yeah, but we don't want your free speech. That's my opinion. And when you watch it, and you watch a lot of these, it seems like some weird entity, maybe some kind of virus or some kind of disease, that's having a fight with itself, and it's gone faulty. It's kind of like watching a computer program that can't quite add up, and it's kind of going dip, 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 dip. Or like when you watch one of these kind of cartoons or films, with a robot that's programmed to hate, and then it maybe sees another robot and it falls in love, and it's kind of like kill, I love you, what, can't compute, and the head just explodes. And that just seems to be what it's like, where like you say, we hate violence, but we're going to use violence to shut you down. You're a snowflake and you're always offended, but then what you say to me in return offends me. And there's this thing with Piers Morgan with the bloody the Greggs vegan sausage roll. He's always kind of going on about the these snowflakes and everyone is offended, yet he seems to be offended by everything. And that's as much on the right as is the left. They use the word snowflake, but some of those people are offended by anything. And I think again, there's time for calm, reasoned discussion in the middle, where you can disagree with somebody, but you've got to use a different method to express that disagreement. If your method is the same as the person that you disagree with, then you're going to run into problems. I think that's true of just everything, and it's true in nature. If you have two opposing forces, you're going to have a massive explosion. Was it like Bruce Lee? It was be like water. If you're calm and peaceful, you can, even if there's an obstruction in the way, you can calmly kind of go around it, maybe you could sort of take that further, you could sort of drown the rock, but that's not what I'm insinuating. And also, I'm aware that out of context, that could sound like, I'm advocating violence on the former pro wrestler The Rock, and I'm not. It's a water analogy. But so moving around obstacles or trying a different approach, if you're approaching it in the same way as the people that you're fighting, it's like everything that you say could be said against you. And the broken robot analogy, it kind of carries on further, because sometimes I love watching people's face where they try to rationalize why they're different. And they go, oh yeah, but I can feel this way because what I'm saying is different, or I'm different. And what they're almost always saying, you know, and I say they, you know, I'm sure that I do it, is we're almost always saying, yeah, but it's my opinion, so my opinion must be more right. And I think all of us would do well to sit down and think of our opinions and try to attack them. And then if we can actually sustain that, so if it stands up to the scrutiny of maybe others or our own opinion, which is why discussion is so important, which is I'm just talking to a camera, but obviously feel free to comment, is when you sound out these things, if somebody can shut you down and go, well, actually, well, not shut you down, if somebody can offer like an alternate view peacefully and calmly, we go, okay, well, you may think that, but what about this? I recently watched some amazing documentaries. One was called White Power, I think, and one was called Jihad. And it was just crazy to watch these people's brains, like these Nazis, talking to, I think the lady comes from like Norway, I think, but has heritage from other parts of the world. So she is almost everything that these kind of Nazis should hate, and probably on some level think they do. So she's a Muslim, she has brown skin, and you know, she's on the left, she's like a liberal, and what's fascinating is hearing them spew their kind of odious views, and they are odious views. I'm not saying they're not. You know, anybody that preaches hate, you know, in my opinion, like needs to be addressed in a calm way. But anyway, yeah, so how she addresses it is she is calm, and she just peacefully tries to talk to these people, and after they will say something really hateful, so they use terms like mudskin and shit skin and stuff, and she kind of reads out some of the hate that she's received, and you can see them squirming uncomfortably, trying to ration it in their brain, like, so I've used that language, but I'm talking to you and I really like you, so I can't quite compute. And she actually says to some of them, you know, would you see me kicked out of the country? And they're like, well, no, because we're friends. So just befriending them and trying a different approach seems to have genuinely changed some people's opinion. Now, it is probably worth mentioning that she's a very attractive lady, which I'm sure played into it. But I would like to believe that even if she was somebody that didn't have the accepted appearance of beauty, because I'm aware that is also arbitrary and is subjective, then she would have had the same result. You know, like, I would like to think a calm, peaceful guy, maybe someone like me, making this video now or talking to other people that, you know, I might disagree with. We can come to some commonality, and we can look at the things that flow through all of us that unite us, rather than spending so much time looking at the things that we hate. And that kind of links on to like Facebook and the way that we communicate like daily with each other, and how we get drawn, you know, it happens to me loads, you get drawn into these crazy like debates where, you know, again, it's like that kind of broken robot opinion. Yeah, but my opinion, you know, as a guy, I'm not going to name him, but he's on my own Facebook, that always posts things that I think are designed to attract negative attention. So he'll say something about like straight white men, and then, you know, loads of straight white men start then kind of commenting and going, okay, well, that's not me, or, you know. And I mean, people moan about like that not all men thing, but you could just put some. If you just put some in front of that, some men, some women, some cis people, rather than just men, women, cis people, it's lumping everybody in together that everybody seems to disagree with, and everybody puts so much effort into this. Okay, well, that doesn't mean me. Like, you know, it's as much, we have to accept that what we say will have consequences. We can't just think that we speak so everybody must listen, and then they you know, like, it's we speak with impunity and it's beyond reproach. And you say something, so therefore people must listen and they must agree, and if they don't, they're a prick and we can hate them. I mean, if that is your view of communication, almost all of the books and things that I've read on wisdom, says that isn't the way to behave. But it seems that is the way that we are kind of like behaving more and more. We're just talking over each other, interrupting, not letting people finish their points or seeing things there that weren't there in the first place. So, as a little example, I've started to realize that specificity is really, really important. So being specific about things, because you can say something specific and it have objective truth, but that could then go off and you could find other things about that thing or that person that maybe are more open to subjectivity. Yeah. So as an example, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, I just put up a post that was basically saying that, even though I didn't agree with Theresa May, I thought that she was a strong woman. Okay, so you'd think people that see themselves more on the left would see that as a good thing, because we do want strong women, and I'm not saying strong as in powerful, but somebody that sticks to their guns, kind of sticks through like difficult times. Okay, now that doesn't mean that you have to agree with that person. So you could objectively say Theresa May is a strong woman, okay, and that have some verisimilitude, okay. But then you could also say, but I don't agree with what she did to the police force. Okay, maybe some people will agree with you on that. Maybe some people won't. But the two things, saying that she's a strong woman, but you sort of didn't disagree with what she did to the police force, they can both exist and be true, or at least have some veracity to them. They don't kind of defeat each other. So it isn't that because you hate what she did to the police force and maybe other areas of the country. I mean, I think she's kind of screwed up a lot, right? But that doesn't mean that she's not a strong woman. The two things they're not mutually exclusive. Okay, so yeah, so that's what I'm trying to say. Sorry, I got confused there in my own point. But do you get what I mean? Where the two things can exist, and that doesn't make a contradiction. So what was happening is, on my post, I just put that I think she's a strong woman, and she has staying power, so much more than someone like David Cameron, who I personally think is a bit of a twit. That's a soft way of putting it. And as soon as things got tough, he was out. I don't think that's admirable. I don't like him. I don't like what Theresa May has done. But all I'm saying is, at least I admire the fact that she's stuck around to try to do it, and also try to do a job that probably no one else wants. She probably got the job because no one else wants it. Okay, I mean, it's kind of like career suicide, really. Even if Corbyn was to take over now, I think it would be like career suicide for him, whoever's doing this, because it isn't going to be that everybody just suddenly agrees and go, yep, you're doing it right, mate, brilliant, we're all on board. You could, I mean, yes, I'm open to the fact that do some things then negate any positive view that you could have of somebody. So you could say, I don't know, Jeffrey Dahmer was really charismatic, okay? But, he did kill people. So is mentioning that he was charismatic, is that relevant, and should you just shut up and just not mention it? So I'm aware that maybe she may have gone too far to the point where making like a positive point about her is bad. Making, I don't know, Stalin kind of may have been an amazing dinner host, but it doesn't negate the fact that he also did a lot of shit. So, but I'm sure there's some people like her that disagree with that. Yeah, but can we make observations about people or about anything on Facebook or in a discussion that we could just stick on that one specific thing, and then not using the Theresa May example again, I just said that I thought that she was a strong woman. Then everyone was, like I got kind of, sort of a wave of antipathy really from people saying, oh, she's this, she's that, and the other, and a lot of the stuff like I did agree with. But it seems that we've kind of lost our minds. Like, you can't make a point that isn't in any way in the middle or like a balance without it being some huge kind of like argument where it's kind of right, left, like red, blue. I almost meant blue left, and that would have totally blown everyone's minds. But, or at least mine. So you can't say, I think that she's a strong woman without then being seen as some kind of right-wing Tory. You can't say that you think maybe capitalism works without being like a heartless, patriarchal dick. And maybe like capitalism, I mean, I don't want to get into a kind of socialism versus capitalism kind of a discussion here. Because again, that's two seemingly like diametrically opposed camps that one, for one to succeed, needs to like obliterate the other. And that seems to be the way that we view everything, rather than going, maybe there's elements of all of this that we could fit together, maybe like a Venn diagram, like you have extreme right, extreme left. Now, I personally think that extreme right is something that we don't want, making powerful decisions for us. Maybe some people think that's what Trump is. I don't know like enough about him or his views and his policies to say that. But I think a lot of reasonable people think that we don't want people on the extreme right making decisions about humanity. Okay, and there are some people on the extreme left who, again, I don't think should be making decisions about humanity. And I say this from somebody that used to be very left, and then just seeing it happen more and more, that as soon as somebody even steps out of line slightly, they're then they're just pounced on and they're denigrated, and it's not helpful for anybody. But because as I'm saying in the whole thing, you can have a view that may lean that way, but you're still fundamentally more on the left. So all of these Antifa people that would rather go out and smash somebody up than at least have a dialogue with somebody. Personally, I don't want deciding things for me or humanity in general. Yeah, they certainly don't speak for me. All of these people in Antifa, but again, on the extreme ends. So you have extreme right, extreme left, right, left. I don't know, because you're watching this, but maybe my confusion over it is the confusion we're all feeling. Kind of who is who anymore. It just seems like, like people sort of make a decision on the surface, like, I like red, I like blue, and then they just basically fight and they just kind of hate each other. Yeah. And are the opinions underneath actually what's important, or is it this primary evolutionary driver to want to be in a tribe and fuck up the other tribe, rather than kind of going, okay, well, I do have to share the world with those people, so let's see what they're all about. I just think it's kind of like Lord of the Flies, and I'm pretty sure that book was written like as a warning, or at least saying, this could happen, or perhaps like does happen. Yeah. So anyway, like you may have extreme left and extreme right. Okay. So although for me that's my extreme right, that's my extreme left, but okay, so we'll go right, left. And I don't think either of those views, in my opinion, like are admirable. And then you kind of move more like towards the middle. Maybe it's like a Venn diagram, right, left. And there's like a Venn diagram in the middle. Some of those things overlap, some of them don't. And maybe the point of a civilized society is trying to encourage more people to exist in that middle ground, and to foster a healthy middle ground has to be dialogue. It has to be not instantly jumping to, this kind of like you're with us or against us. I even had this Facebook discussion where somebody was saying that I was part of the problem because I wouldn't get on board with the whole punch the Nazis thing. So therefore I was kind of like with them. I mean, that's ridiculous. Like, and actually what's weird is some of the people saying that probably hated when, I think, was it George Walker Bush said, you're either with us or against us in the fight on terrorism, and everyone said, oh, that's really bad, like, I mean, sort of opposing people, like against each other, and yet people that probably thought that, and again we're back to contradictions, like the broken robot, people that thought that are actually doing that, and it just seems crazy that they don't just sit back and think about it. But I bet, if you're somebody that thinks we should punch Nazis, and if you're not on board with that, then you're part of the problem. Because there's that quote about, like, if you see oppression and you don't stand up for it, you're on the side of the oppressor or something. So everybody goes to the extreme end of it. But yeah, so if you're not on board with the whole punch Nazis thing, then you're part of the problem and you're siding with the oppressor. If that's what you believe, you're using the exact same argument that you probably hated from George Bush, saying you're either with us or against us. Like it's just ridiculous. Everything is about balance, and everything is about shades of grey, and existing in the middle. And the thing is like, we do have to share this world with the other people. Maybe that's the biggest shock with the British referendum and with the American election, is that, like, we do have to share our planet with these people. Yeah? Whatever your like view is, if you're staunchly Remain, staunchly Leave, like, you have to live with the other side. And there may be people in your family, maybe people in your community, and it is possible to love somebody that voted Leave if you'll Remain. Okay, that is possible. As I said before, they're not mutually exclusive, and you can like one aspect and it have some truth, and then not like another aspect of that person and that have some truth for you. And now, I'm aware that even the word truth is subjective and there's relative truth. But let's say, for argument's sake, using the Theresa May example, that we all objectively agree that she's a strong woman, then that could have some truth. And then you could also say that you think that she has decimated the police force. And you could look at the data and you could go, that seems objectively true. Okay? But again, I'm aware that there are many people that would probably question both of those assertions. Now, the police force one is probably like a harder one. I personally think she didn't do good, and most of the people that I know that are in the police or have views on the police think that she did a complete hatchet job. Okay, but what about the strong woman one? If you don't like her and don't think she's a strong woman, then I would ask, what defines a strong woman then? What is strength? Is strength standing up in the face of adversity? Is it sticking around when things are tough? I think we would all agree that that is strength. So you can dislike somebody but think they are a strong person. I think I'm only going to try to engage in conversations with people where so that's in real life, also on Facebook, where you feel that you can make those assertions and have that level of conversation, and not just say, okay, well, I think Theresa May is a strong woman, and then everyone go, oh, you're a prick, she's this, she's that. Because often it isn't even the point you're making, and they're making their own points. It's almost like they want to be heard. Yeah. That's going to link on to something else that I wanted to say in a minute. This is a whole stream of consciousness. We're already 38 minutes in. Okay. So I'm only going to have conversations from now on with people in the real world and on social media world that can have that level of conversation where you can make a specific point and you can discuss that without just kind of completely sending a wave of antipathy and negativity towards you when it isn't even what you were saying and it's not what you're intending. Specificity in a discussion, I'm realizing more and more, is so important, because otherwise you spend hours just talking about stuff that sometimes you're not even talking about. And I've seen it myself, when I've read over things that I've been talking about with other people, where actually in agreement, we're sometimes making the same point, but because you're engaged in a sort of combative mentality, we don't see it. Okay. And I think so for instance, at the open mic night last night, I was talking to this chap, and it was kind of a light-hearted discussion, just about kind of the way the world is, right? Which I'm aware kind of sounds like a contradiction itself, but it's fairly light-hearted, at the bar. And I just asked him if he was aware of what they call behavioural economics, as opposed to regular economics, where regular economics assumes that we're rational and we make rational choices, and then behavioural economics is about the kind of human as opposed to the econ, where we're not rational. Okay. Some of us just sit in a shed in the garden talking to a camera. Okay, is that rational behaviour? Spending hours I hate you, is that rational? Buying things we know we don't need. Okay, so people think that was always just accepted, but it wasn't. It was something that people started to realise kind of later on in the game. In fact, there are some people that still refuse to accept the veracity of behavioural economics. Okay, but I believe it is there. There's this part of us that does things for reasons we don't even know. Anyway, so all I said to the guy was, are you aware of behavioural economics, and actually how it says that we make choices that aren't for the best of us sometimes, and they're not rational. And then he sort of went off on some kind of crazy tangent about, how, he hates economists, and how how the trouble with the world is that young people, we sort of believe everything that we're told, and if a celebrity, said that I should buy something, we all will. And so I then just calmly tried to say, okay, well, I think that's always been a problem, and I don't think we're any more swayed now than we ever were. I think, maybe you could make a case that people were more swayed by the media and the government, and I think that we probably did make more predictable choices as we have the internet, and we're realizing that other people like us exist. I think we are probably starting to move away from just being swayed by kind of one thing. So, but he kept kind of talking over me, and then I was just trying to say that wasn't the point I was making, all of this, and he was just making his own, and in the end I just said, look mate, I can't have this conversation with you because you're just talking over me, and you're not even letting me finish the point that I'm trying to make, without making several others of your own. And that's the trouble with this Facebook thing. If somebody makes another point, then you have to address that one. So you kind of lose the point you were like initially making, much like many of these diatribes, and then you get kind of, you know, sort of taken down like a sojourn. Oh, I'm getting a phone call. Hello, Mum. How are you? Yes, it's really good. Could I phone you back in about 5 minutes, please, Sausage? Because I'm right in the middle of recording something. He is okay, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he had his cowpole and his fever's down, but I'll like phone you back in a bit. All right, Sausage. Bye. That was my mum. So I think I'm going to leave that in there unless there's any other sounds. What was I saying? Yeah, okay. So, like with the Facebook discussions, you often get drawn down other kind of alleys. So, you know, you make one point and then someone will kind of come back with, often sort of ignoring like the basic thrust of what you were saying in the first place, going, but, you know, this, that and the other. It's like, okay, well, now I've got to address all of that as well. And then if you don't, you're seen as you start a conversation and then you're not open to changing your mind. And, you know, like I've been accused of all of this kind of stuff. It's like, you know, like if you start a conversation and then you decide to end it, maybe you're doing something wrong, you know. But again, you know, with all of this, you don't have to ask for permission. If you don't want to do something, then just stop it. Go, okay, well, no. And that's what I decided. And I think I'm going to do that kind of more and more with Facebook. If I can see that I'm being sucked into a discussion that is going nowhere, I think for the sake of me and the other person, I'm not saying, you know, that I'm the only one that's kind of suffering in that. It is literally just best to end it. Maybe we should like have a code word, you know, pineapples or something, spider crab arm, okay? Just something, yeah. So we can just, you know, it's like time out, yeah. And then just, you know, see the other person who we're discussing with and going, is this actually doing anything? Is this changing anything? Like, do I still have love in my heart for you, irrespective of all of this shit? I think if more of us did that, more of us fostered that kind of control in the moment, don't get personally attached to what we think and feel, you know, as much. I'm sure some people I would disagree with that, but does it get you anywhere? Does it get society anywhere if it's constantly confrontation and constantly fighting? So I think I kind of spoke about that, you know, ad infinitum. For now. So there was a couple of other things that I just wanted to say, and that kind of goes back to value, about how I think all of us think that we say something and then it must have value to other people, and if it doesn't, then they're a prick. Now, you can't assume that what you're saying has value to anyone, okay? Like, does it have to have value to anyone? Okay, but that's almost irrelevant, because people think that what they say, like, other people must agree with. If you don't, there's something wrong with you, and everything we say must be listened to. So if you say something, it's like, you must listen to me. It's the same with this, you know, like, does listening to me just waffle on for like an hour or something have any value to you? I mean, probably not, okay? But does it have value to me? And I would argue that it must do, or else I wouldn't do it, would I? Okay? So is that enough? I think it's enough. Just having value to you. So if you feel that you need to say something, if you feel you need to creatively say something, if you feel that you have, you know, an opinion that you want to share, feel free to share it. Okay? I'm not saying that, you know, people shouldn't, but you then just can't instantly assume that that's going to have value and other people will listen and agree. You don't get to choose what you say, how other people will respond to that, okay? And then if you're responding to that, you can decide whether you agree with it, whether you want to argue with it. So, you know, and again, there's a weird kind of, like, even as I'm saying this, I can kind of feel my brain, ticking over, and I can almost imagine other people commenting and going, yeah, but what if what they're saying is hateful? Okay, look, I'm aware that there's a contradiction even within this. Okay, and this is what I'm saying about like the broken robot, and I would probably even, as being the broken robot then, where I'm going, okay, well, we've got a right to an opinion and we can say it, but then we don't get to choose how it's received. Is that a contradiction? I mean, yes, there's loads of contradiction and loads of cognitive dissonance surrounding this whole thing with opinions, and also non sequiturs where things just don't logically add up. I'm aware of all of that, and I'm probably like doing it now. Okay, and I think that's where discussion comes in, and other people going, okay, well, what about this? And actually calmly talking about it and dismantling each other people's words rather than who they are. Somebody can say something that you don't agree with but still be a great person that you could spend a lot of time with. But it's this thing of like, okay, well, you say that, you're a prick, and again, like with these documentaries, some of the guys in that white power one are saying some incredibly odious things, but then she manages to tap into their humanity, and some of them are quite damaged, lonely people. Again, I mean, there's another massive kind of like cognitive dissonance, because what if those people are suffering from some form of mental illness like depression, and the way that they've learned to kind of tackle that is to use their hate and find kind of bonds with other people. Maybe all we're searching for is connections, and these kind of racist types find a connection with other people, but what is at the heart of it is they really hate themselves and they have a lot of depression problems. It's weird that it seems a lot of people, say again more on the left, would see themselves in favour of helping people with depression and with mental health issues, yet only if they exhibit other characteristics that we like. So if they're wholly nice and they're depressed, we're on board. If they're depressed but they say things that are undesirable, fuck them. And it just does not add up. Yeah. In fact, maybe the biggest test of character is how we deal with people that we don't agree with, and maybe how we deal with people we find odious. Can you look into the eyes or the heart of another individual and see the humanity? I'll never forget when I watched a little documentary. I think it was about serial killers. It was kind of like fun evening viewing, and it had this bit where a guy, I think was like truly horrific. He had killed loads of people. I think it was mainly women, and was a complete shit in his behaviour. And they had some footage from the courthouse, and everybody was given a minute or so just to read a personal statement, and all of the families, just one after the other, was just a wave of kind of anger and hate, which is understandable. Okay, and it was stuff like, I hope that you die in prison, I hope you get killed, I hope you get beaten up, all of this sort of stuff. Okay, I'm not saying they're wrong for that, but that's what they were all saying. And then this guy at the end, he stands up, he's got like white hair, like white beard, and I think it was his daughter who was killed, and he says that, and it still makes me emotional. He says that he has always believed in things like forgiveness, and this the serial killer has made it difficult for him, but he cannot bring himself to hate him, and he forgives him. And the thing that's interesting about all of this is when all of the preceding people would just wave after wave of hate. Okay, it was like water off a duck's back to the guy. When the guy finally, at the end said that he forgave him and showed some warmth. I mean, in a situation, I don't know how that guy had the strength, because maybe I would give in to the hate. But the killer's response to the old fella saying that he forgave him is he just basically just starts crying. He gets this monster. I think every conceivable notion that we have of calling somebody a monster, like this guy exhibits, the killer, but the dad somehow found a way to forgive him, and it just floored me, because it's the only thing that got a reaction out of that other guy. Now, who's to say who was right in that situation and who was wrong? I don't know, but I can only control my own actions, and I think I'm going to try as best I can to be more on the loving end. And maybe, it's something we could all take on board. Or else. No, I'm just joking. There's one more point I wanted to make. I've been kind of waffling a lot. I think I've spoken all about this value. But the very last point that I wanted to make is about Facebook in general, and how I think we've all just become an Oprah Winfrey audience. Okay, now what I mean by that is often in an Oprah Winfrey audience, someone will spew some trite platitude. Oh, that's my stomach, I'm obviously hungry. Somebody will spew some trite platitude, and then the audience will erupt with applause, like, yes, amazing. Okay, but it's just sophistry half the time, and it's just empty and it's banal. And when you analyse it, you think, okay, well that doesn't add up, or you've seen that person kind of exhibit behaviours that you think, okay, well you've just completely contradicted what you've said. Yeah, so. But the audience has already applauded by that point, okay? And I'm starting to think, are we just becoming an Oprah Winfrey audience, where we're saying things for our audience? We're saying things we know people will like and love and share. And is it actually what we really feel? Is it true? Or are we just doing it because we want that validation? We want the likes? A classic example of that is there's some people I know that I'm going to call them feminizers, who are real feminists on the surface, but I happen to know are real shits with women, and they're into this whole thing like the game and pickup artistry, and all of that stuff. But if you look at their Facebook posts, they're all women are amazing, I'm sort of fully kind of behind women, and sort of third wave feminism, and all of that. But really, they're not at all, which is why they're feminizers. They use that just to get laid more. But I see the amount of people like her that like their posts and they get shared, and those kind of things. And I just think to myself, does no one else see that? They must be aware of what they're like. Is it that the opinion, so maybe this is the opposite of what I'm saying, where that person's opinion is more important than the person? And I suppose what I'm arguing for is maybe the person is more important than the opinion. Now that's what I should call this thing. The person is more important than the opinion. Because you can say all of the right things, but be a complete shit. Or you can say all of the wrong things and be a really great person. And maybe it's actions that are the defining thing. And I've done plenty of things that I'm ashamed of and a shit, and I will hold my hand up to them. But every day we're trying to move forward. But perhaps it's easier to have opinions than to live up to them. And maybe it's the actions that are more important. And I think I'm going to leave you with this. It's a quote by Henry Rollins. It's one of my favourite quotes, which is, untested knowledge is just bullshit. So I think that's something that I really agree with, and I should probably end this because I could feel my tummy rumbling. So, unless you want an hour of my stomach gurgling, we're going to end it there with the person is more important than the opinion. So thanks for listening. I hope this was of some value to you. I hope that the audio and the picture quality is good. And I would really love to do this with another human being rather than just do it myself. I am going to do one of these a week, even if it's just me. And even if I'm just talking to myself and sifting through ideas in my own head, then that has value to me. So, peace out.